Good evening and welcome to Literature in 60 Minutes. My name is Zandile Pooe. I hope you are joining us from Facebook Live, YouTube, or Zoe Live Radio. I am so excited to be with you this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Tonight we are talking to Mabel Mani, and she is the author of Living the Gift Out Loud, How to Spot and Nurture Your Child's Unique Talent. Now, Mabel is a strength and productivity expert. She is a parenting coach as well as a speaker. And she is here with us tonight to talk about her book, but most importantly, just her story, the story of how she's raising her boys, how she is doing something that I think we as parents should all be doing. We should all be looking to recognize and nurture and make sure that our children have the fullest expression of themselves through the gift that God has given them. The Bible says that your gift will make room for you and it'll bring you before great men. But there's a lot of nurturing that must happen before you meet great men and you express your gift in a way that is, excellent and without any doubt that this is indeed a gift from God. But we are chatting to her right after the break. Let's catch up with her then.
Zoe Live Radio, the abundant life experience. Walking in love. We love gospel music. Zoe Live Radio, the abundant life experience.
Welcome back. And like I said earlier, we are talking to Mabel Mani, and she is the author of Living the Gift Out Loud, How to Successfully Spot and Nurture Your Child's Unique Talent. This book took me through the motions because I have 3 young children, and Mabel chronicles her journey on how she is raising her high-achieving, sportish, athletic boys. Welcome, Mabel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Zandile. Thank you for having me. Really good to be here and nice to meet you and connect with you on this platform.
Thank you so much for joining us, and sending me your book. First of all, I must thank you for making the effort of sending me your book and giving me an opportunity to read it because, sure, I really got a lot out of it, even though I'm not done completely reading it, but the gems that are in there. But tell me, what motivated you? Just from reading your introduction, your dedications and your acknowledgements, I can tell that you're a very family-centric woman. You talk about your dad. The book is dedicated to your dad and your family. Your most of your acknowledgements go out to your family and your close relatives. So tell me what motivated you to write the book.
I guess it's a long winding story. I've always wanted to write. I think as far as I was 5 years old, I always said, I'm going to write a book. Wow. But then I didn't know what it was going to be about. Then fast track, I had my 2 boys who disrupted my whole thinking and belief system and the way I knew things in terms of growing up as a child, parenting. They just disrupted my whole thinking. That's when I thought, that's the book I'm going to write about. That's when everything came together. I said, okay, that's what motivated me. And I just had to, the way my life was disrupted by, everybody has, when you have kids, things change. Things
Very
change a
much
lot.
So, hey?
But then with my 2, it was just more than the inconvenience of now you have a kid, you've just moved from just being 2 people, a couple in the house, to now having a kid in the house. Just my whole mindset had to change. My whole belief system had to change because I was having these 2 kids who were showing me a whole lot of different things that I had to think different. I had to realize I had to think different. I had to act different. And I knew it wasn't just my own journey. I knew at some stage that there's another mother, there's another couple with children similar to my children who need the answer, who need solutions, who need a roadmap to similar kids who are driven, who are high achievers, who don't fit into the normal system of life of schooling, because that was my challenge. So I thought other people need an answer and a roadmap because at the beginning it was a lot challenging because obviously it's not what you're used to when you're growing up. So I just thought it would be an answer to another person, another parent. If I can change and help one mom, one parent, then I would have successfully done my job.
Sure. And I'm grateful for that. Hey, like I don't quite have the same story in terms of my kids being sportish or athletic, but I can completely relate to you wanting to share and to give us a manual stroke guide on how we can journey in nurturing our children's talents. I like how you've defined gift. You know, you've said it as a skill, ability, or strength that one is born with. So how early were you able to recognize that your children are high achievers, one, and which bent or which particular skill are they gifted with?
Gifted with. At the beginning, there's no label to it. You just see certain traits, certain attributes that stand out.
Yes.
So when my first son, when he was in school, the feedback was from his classroom teacher. He's very energetic, very boisterous. He struggles to sit down for long periods of time in the classroom. That was the thing that stood out for us, and she kept saying, he does his work quickly, then he puts up his hand, he wants more work. Sure. He's very quick, very driven,
Wow.
And he wants more work. He finishes, then he becomes disruptive and playful because he's done all his work and the other kids are still working. At the same time, his PE teacher actually called us up and said, he is very, very driven, very competitive. He wants to win all the time. He's very quick. So she did encourage us to maybe tone his competitive down, So that sort of was like, what's that about? Yes. And then on the other side, we put him into tennis. We started putting him into sport. For us, it was like to burn his energy.
Yes.
And his tennis coach was like, the similar traits that the teacher and the PE teacher picked out: his boisterousness, his energy, his self-driven, his athleticism, his energy. He said, and he had a skill. He said he had a skill to transfer learning quickly into his own personal skills.
Oh, I see.
And he said these are the foundations of a professional athlete. Professional athletes are extremely self-driven, very competitive,
yes.
And they move skills quickly to self-perfection. So we looked at it. Me and my husband were like, there were the same attributes the teacher and the PE was talking about, and the tennis coach was talking about. So what was the difference really? So we call them symptoms. So the same symptoms.
Yes.
The only difference was the environment. One environment didn't accommodate it, didn't tolerate it. It was actually an inconvenience to the classroom. So the teacher was saying it's disruptive. Obviously, she had a system, she had a timetable she had to follow, and he was disturbing that system. The PE teacher used to say, other kids are starting to feel bad because he's very competitive, very driven. We need to tone down his competitiveness. So those were the things that didn't fit into the schooling classroom and school system. But on the court, in the field, he is driven. They're loving those same skills. They're loving his competitiveness. They're loving his drive. So we realized it was a case of environment, not actually the skills themselves, the symptoms that were the problem. And that's what we picked up on and started thinking, this is not the problem. The environment is the problem. And not that there's anything wrong with the school system, nothing wrong with that environment. It just couldn't accommodate what he was standing out on. So that's what made us pick up. So at the beginning, you don't have a name to it. It's just the disruption and the things that are standing out, then having to figure out, so where do these traits, which environment is best for them?
I love that because the next chapter in your book, you talk about intelligence, that was an eye-opener for me because you talk about the different types of intelligence, which was a penny drop for me because I could immediately recognize myself, my husband, and one of my children because my two smallest children are like 2.5 and 1.5. So I can't tell yet what those are going to, shape into. But for the three of us, I could immediately tell, oh, he's there, I'm there, I'm there. And it was so empowering. It was very, very empowering for me because then I was like, oh, I see. I've always known that my oldest daughter is creative, but I could see a combination of two and a very strong balance between the two types of intelligence. So tell us a bit more about that without obviously telling us, in nitty-gritty details, but just a brief summary.
Yeah, what brought me to do a bit of more research was that's where the conflict was with my own original mindset, my own original upbringing. So I don't know how far you went into the book. I talk about, I mentioned my story when I was growing up.
Yes, I went that far. I went further, actually. Yeah, I did. I went a bit further than that. I think I ended up in chapter creating fun rituals. That's as far as I went.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
oh, wow.
I went quite a bit.
Yeah. So there's a story I talk about my mindset, why I thought that intelligence only fitted one type of intelligence.
Yeah.
So anything outside academics was not rendered intelligence in my experience growing up. So anything outside the academics, the maths, English, science. If you want to be a musician, if you want to be an athlete, if you want to be anything else, you're considered dull. Yes. You're not intelligent, and pretty much your future is not as exciting as the scientist and the mathematician and the accountant and the lawyer. And then I think maybe God was laughing when he gave me athletes and said, you know what, they are intelligent as well. Because
and he was, I think, using you and your life story as a vehicle for a lot of people's eyes to be opened. And I could completely relate with your story about academic achievement and academic intelligence being considered more superior, because I liked how you even mentioned the types of intelligence that you noted down, that there isn't an inferior or a superior one. We all need to understand where we fall in each area and then harness the area that we fall in. And that's all we need to do with our children and ourselves, essentially. But yeah, sorry, I cut into your answer.
And I think there's not enough emphasis on that in the world, in our society. And that's a historical thing. It's also, I put it somewhere in the book where actually I thought the reader must know the historical background of, the schooling system itself, that it, without going too much into it, that it was something that was started in the industrialization era.
Yes.
So that they could have people ready for the factory. Yes. So the factory was only accommodative of certain skills or certain subjects, the maths and the English and the science. So the arts didn't fit into that system. So we see that even like many, many years from now, even now in this era now, we still have the same ranking system, but we're not in the industrial era anymore. So there are so many other careers and skills and professions that people can go to, but we still have the same mindset that, the other subjects, the other professions that are more superior, more valuable than the other. But if you really go back, that was the reason why that ranking system was created. I don't think, I'm a faith-based person, so I don't think God created a ranking system.
No, he didn't.
It's a man-made thing, and I think it's something that we really need to debunk and move away from.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I love how you cited the scripture, the gifts and the callings of God are irrevocable. And what's amazing here is that you also mentioned that children come into the world with a gift. And that's an important thing for all of us to recognize. A lot of us think, you hone and shape when they are here, but they come with it already. So we need to now find ways, and you talk of tools and strategies as well, on how we are going to nurture what's already there in terms of personality and character, in terms of just recognizing, also in those personalities. I like how you cited an example with your boys that for them to even play tennis, it was a personality decision mostly, was because when they played team sports, they did not do well. They were not happy. They were very frustrated. They are competitive. They do, chip in their bit and they excel. However, because of the group context that they find themselves in, they struggle. And you were able to even recognize it right down to that level. Because a lot of us will think, hey, go play soccer, man. Like, you are in sports, netball, everything, just do sports. But essentially, you also need to recognize your child's personality, individual personality. And you speak of how sometimes as parents, because of authority and control, we tend to subdue and suppress children's personalities and individualism. Tell me more about that, how you experienced that and moved away from it early with your children.
I think what you talked about there is the chapter where I say, are you fighting the gift?
Yes, fighting the gift.
Yeah, which I thought that chapter was hilarious because my upbringing, I was a natural athlete. I loved to run. I was quick. I was athletic. But then I was never celebrated. There was a time I came home with a whole lot of trophies. I had won literally everything, 100 meters, 200 meters, high jump. I think I had to stand in. There was a girl who was sick for the 400 meters. I took a place and I came second, which wasn't my specialty. I wasn't a long distance runner. Sure. So that's how good I was. I came home. My sister had to help me literally carry the trophies home.
Wow.
I got home, and my mom, I'm not even sure why she didn't even turn up for the event. She wasn't there at the event. But we turned up at home, we got back home, she was in the kitchen, and I'm all excited. I think I was about 10, excited, like, Mom, look, and she downplayed it so much. She's like, oh, yeah, you're done, but go back to the books. Are the books finished? So I remember that like it was yesterday.
I can tell the memory is quite vivid. I mean, sure, you explained it so well, yeah.
For a 10-year-old, it's sort of, the message is loud and clear. Yeah. It's not important. Yeah. That's the message I got. There are other more important things that we need to be focusing on. And fast track, I went into high school, similar thing, similar message, that the girls used to make fun of me, that I had big calves, and it's not cool, it's not sexy to run for a girl, the boys won't like you. So pretty much you realize, okay, this ain't cool. I'm not going to have friends. I'm not going to have potential boyfriend at one time because it's not a cool thing. So your family, your society, your environment sort of shapes what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. So I realized, okay, so this is not a place for me to focus on. And funny enough, my husband, when he was at school, he loved sports, he loved tennis, he was very good in athletics, but his family actually looked for a school that had no sport at all. It was so far away that actually in their credentials, the way they looked for school was no sports, no athletics, no tennis. And that was their criteria to put him in that school. And he talks about when he went into the school, he found the school had a dilapidated court. And he went to the head teacher, a young, vibrant boy, a 13-year-old boy. He goes to the head teacher and goes, can we fix the courts? And the teacher was like, that's not why you're here. You're here for school.
Then that's not a part of school. And any of your teaching and development will not happen on the courts.
Will not happen. Yeah. So those are my two examples I talk about when we're fighting the gift, literally. And sometimes it's very unconscious. You don't realize it because obviously you're on this autopilot-driven mindset. This is how I've been brought up and this is what I'm going to continue. It's only when you start paying attention to the disruption. And that's what I want to create for parents. Just step back, because I know at the end of that chapter, I put a self-assessment, a few questions that I ask that you make yourself think, am I fighting my child's gift in the way, the way I think or the way I behave or the way I react, or am I moving them into certain places so they fit in instead of standing out? So that's because I just realized most parents, as I did it with my boy at the beginning, it's unconscious. You don't realize it. If the child is naughty, the child is boisterous, the child's got energy, you tell them to down, slow down, don't do that, sit down. You actually put, things. And I remember the school wanted to put a behavioral plan for him so that he can learn to sit down for longer. And he was 6. You're thinking a 6-year-old boy, to sit down for longer periods of time. But that's how we're fighting the gift. We're constantly suppressing and subduing the gift. And it's a kid. So at the end of the day, the kid, like I said, my 10-year-old, 13-year-old, I remember the message was, it's not important. There are more important things to focus on. This thing you have, this thing you like, let's push it right down because there are other more important things to do. It's not cool, you won't fit in. And that constant message, if it's the message you hear for 10 years, for 15 years, by the time you're 15, 16, it's so suppressed, it's so subdued that the gift just lies dormant. So that's how the society fights the gift. That's how the family, your own parenting style, just, you end up, the kid just got no power. he has to be obedient to the parents. He has to be obedient in class. He has to be obedient to the society to fit in. And so if you're not having parents who advocate for you, who stand up for the gift and yourself, then, the gift just dies there. And that's what pains me. And that was my drive for the book, that so many talents, so much potential has been lost because we are fighting the gift as a society, as parents, as moms, because we're wanting our children to fit in so much at the expense of their own potential, at the expense of their self-expression, and that's not a good thing.
But it's incredible because when I think of how our society is sort of socially wired, we watch soccer games on the weekend. We huddle around the TV for Olympics every 4 years. We watch UEFA. Like, it's so strange, eh? Like, we watch all these things where all these high achiever, high performers have their gifts in full display.
Yeah.
But then in our own environments, we are trying to live vicariously through our children, but not in a manner that we can see that, Messi is successful because he's been playing soccer since he could walk, We see that Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, Tiger Woods, all these people, if you follow their stories, they're very clear. They started very early, and that's the primary thing that they did, which brings us to this 10,000 hours, scientifically proven time frame as to how long it takes for a person to develop a sort of an expert skill level.
Mastery
I
level,
once read a book, or recently I read a book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Very good book.
Okay.
And he talks about that 10,000 hour rule. And it's the most amazing. That's the book to get, because you are into this sort of thing of making sure that you achieve someone's optimum potential. That book is an incredible read, and the stories in there are absolutely amazing. But in your 10,000 hours for your kids, how far along are you guys? How well are you inching towards that expert level?
That's interesting because my one started playing tennis when they were 3.
Wow. Sure. So they're quite far along.
So now they're 15 and 13. So I think research says 10,000 hours sort of equates to about 10 years or something like that.
Yeah, give or take. Depending on how much time they invest in the court and everything else.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. I think we might be halfway, or maybe my older one is sort of 3/4 into it.
Hey.
But I guess it's when you talk about the books you read, when I started obviously having to learn and have to reinvent my mindset again, I read a great book. It's called something about mining the gold, the gold effect, mine gold effect. I don't know, I'm not sure what it's called, but it's about an English guy who did research. He went to Kenya. He went to Kenya to study the marathon runners. He went to Jamaica to study the athletes. So he went to different places where obviously the most athletes stand out.
Yes.
And he realized, he went to Brazil for soccer. And realized that, especially for why I'm putting in the stories, the Brazilian upbringing, kids play soccer all the time. With their no shoes,
everywhere.
So they're already working on the 10,000 hours. So we actually think they have to be so formalized, they have to be so serious. He said, kids from school, they run home and they created their own little teams. They play all day over the weekend. First thing in the morning before school, they are playing, because he said Brazil is really, really crazy about football or soccer. So they've just managed, like a kid who's 10 would have done so many hours already before he's even scouted, before he even actually starts playing for an actual team, So I guess it's that 10,000 hour rule. It actually can start any time, and it can be as formal or as informal as it is, just as long as they start the input, the work to mastering. Because obviously mastering means you have to start somewhere, then you have to be focused, disciplined, etc. As long as you start and putting in your hours, then you're right there.
You're well on your way, hey? Sure. Wow. That's a good one, because I was also thinking of it in terms of a structured training program with, regiments and routines and all of those things. But I guess if you are already going about, the activity or the sport in even a relaxed, unstructured setting, you are still getting in and putting in that time.
Exactly.
So now you've already mentioned learning environments and schools. I mean, that's how society is structured. We take our children to schools. We expect them to be taught both academically, and then there's that small PE segment where they get to stretch their legs and do whatever it is that the school has on their schedule. But now the idea of taking your kids completely out of that environment, or limiting the amount of time they spend in that formalized structure environment and then creating something different for them. How easy or how difficult was that for you to do?
It was, well, I'll have to admit at the beginning, my husband is very like that, very black and white. He's like, let's take them out of school. It's contradicting to what we're doing. So before I had my head around the idea, they were out of school.
Decisiveness. You have to make decisions.
He's very like that. He didn't like the idea that, we sort of look at it as 10, 15 years down the line, we wouldn't recognize our son. Because we'd have been impressed so much, we'd have been told, don't do this doesn't fit in, So for him, it was like, nah, let's get him out type of scenario. So before I knew it, my kids were home. We actually told the school they're not coming back. And I remember the first day of homeschooling, my boys sat on my dining table and they're like, Mom, we're ready for school. I was like, oh my gosh.
I think about this.
What's helped with my boys is they're naturally driven. They're naturally disciplined. They know what they want to do. They know where they want to go.
Sure.
So if this is our pathway to where we need to get what I want to do, they'll follow it. They're very disciplined. I don't have to push them a lot regarding their school. They know, okay, this is school time, this is downtime, this is training time, this is tournament time. They are very focused. They're very self-disciplined within themselves. And I don't think I had much to do with that. That's a personality that they've come with. So homeschooling has been a lot easier because they are already inclined that way. For example, when I mentioned the example, when my older son was in school, he was already fast-paced, working quicker than all the other kids were. And there's a time where he was put in class for, I think it was IT and English and maths. He was with an individual teacher in a different room. So we sort of thought this is like homeschool is on his own. And it seemed like the class was slowing him down. So I think when you go back again to paying attention to the child, they will tell you they dictate the pace. So at home, he works at his own pace. He loves that. He's a very individualized person. Like, and when you go back to focusing on, his personality, he loves working on his own. He loves doing his work. He loves knowing what his task is, and he's just happy to continue with it. So I think for us it was easier because my boys are naturally inclined like that. And I think when I talk about in the book high achievers, you will find that your children are high achieving in a specific area.
Yes.
So I believe all children are driven. You just need to find which area where their drive lies.
Yeah.
So there are things that my boys, you have to pull their hair to do. They would not do.
I would imagine.
They're not interested in, they have no passion, they have no interest whatsoever. But then in relation to their sports, their tennis, they know this is what they want to do, this is the one way they want to go. So this is what we have to do in order to achieve the success I want to do. So my message is, find what it is that your child likes to do, and you'll find that they're very naturally inclined to it. They will drive, they'll be self-driven. Obviously, as a parent, I call myself as facilitator.
Yes.
I'm not pushing them. They are self-driven. I just help them get to that journey. And I think that's the secret in making things work.
You talk about personality and character. You mentioned it a bit there. And you talk about how too much control, fixing and adjusting a child's character and personality can do more harm than good. That's a quote or an extract from your book. That really hit a nerve with me because I feel like it's a very delicate balance, because sometimes you yourself have been socialized in this way or brought up in this way, where when your child is different and they want to do a different thing, like I said, my daughter is creative, so she gets lost in this bubble, this imaginary world, so when it's time to do practical life things, she's just like, you can miss me with that. And it's a difficult thing, because we gotta get practical at some point. So
exactly. We do.
It's a thing. We are all learning here, and we are all trying to work with what we've got and work it as best as we can. So now with your kids, at least the natural affinities, the natural discipline, the personality trait, that if I put him in an environment where he's learning individually, he is going to excel there. This one may need a little bit of support. Those things are so difficult sometimes to identify when you are not looking for them, when you are just trying to send your child to school, because not all of us can stop and homeschool and dedicate that amount of focus. So what kind of advice would you give to a parent who can recognize that my child is gifted in this area, however, I still have these social structures or a normal school that they have to still go to, and all these other things that I have an obligation to also still do? How do they also still try and make their child's gift shine through?
Yeah, I think it's, as a parent, parenting is hard enough. I think half of the time it's a trial. It seems like you're trialing and erroring a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it just requires the parent to just pay a little more attention than normal. I'm not sure if that's my own personality thing, or I believe that every parent, whatever a teacher tells you, it's a confirmation of something you already know.
True. Very true.
It should never be
a surprise.
A teacher telling you something. It should never be a surprise. If it is, then I think something you need to...
It's definitely wrong, with the amount of attention you're paying to your child.
You're paying to. Nobody else should have to tell you something that you don't know about your child. So not even just the school teacher, just maybe extended family, friends, your circle. They should be confirming things that you have an idea about. Maybe you don't have a name to the things, whatever it is. But if they point something to you, it's like, oh yeah, that's what it was. That's what I was thinking about. So I think a lot of times we've left. I think we have delegated our parenting responsibilities to the school. That's what I think.
Yes.
A lot of stuff we've delegated to the school or to other organizations and systems. And then somewhere along the track we go, oh, I didn't know. And I don't think that's fair on the child. I think the parent has to be the number one advocate for the child, because the child is at home. So that's the first incubation.
Yes.
For anything to grow, And I think I mentioned somewhere in the book where when we talk about nurturing, we're talking about at home.
Yes.
Nurturing happens in the house.
Yes.
So when I write the book, it's for parent at home. I didn't talk about development, because development is when you start going outside and looking for other experts to start helping you now to build or develop whatever you're trying to. So for me, it's like the coaches, the other fitness instructors and stuff. That's development, but nurturing is actually at home. So that's a parent's responsibility. So I think when I write the book, it's just bringing that awareness that I know sometimes we've got a lot of things going, maybe work full time, maybe people have got night shifts, it's busy. It's a modern world, But I think we still owe it to our children to give them that extra attention, that extra time, that extra eye into who they are and who they want to be, because they're the blueprint. I talk a lot about the child is the blueprint. He tells you who he is and where he wants to go, and you're supposed to help him now walk. And I think that's just my message to parents. Just pay a little more attention and don't delegate your parenting responsibilities to other people. Nurturing starts at home. The child has to feel comfortable with their gift at home before they take it out. So if a parent does not acknowledge the gift, who else is going to acknowledge it?
And
the child has to feel the child has to feel okay, that my parent loves what I do. Like, but I think I'm not sure if I talk about it somewhere in my book, where I know one of my good friends, a little girl, is an artist.
Yeah.
So they used to put little pictures in the house. They were not fancy. They were, stick pictures, but they framed them, and they were the pictures that were in the house. So for the daughter, it's like, oh, my art, my work
gallery.
is actually big.
I already have a gallery at home. I don't need the Louvre in France.
Exactly. You see,
I already have one.
I don't need an external person to validate me because my parents do. So that's what I talk about when you're nurturing. Make the child confident within themselves, and that only comes from a parent. And then the outside will now actually just join you along the path of what you're trying to develop and create.
Because you mentioned it so beautifully that the home is the first incubator, of excellence, you say. And it came to me then when I read that you are so right. In the context, though, of when your child, for instance, you say you are athletic, you've got that inclination already. So when you recognize that gift in your children, it was maybe possibly, easier for you to say, yeah, I also had this thing. So let me see how far I can take it with my own kids. However, in the cases where the interests of your child and your own interests and not just interests, but as well as your intentions for their future are divergent, like most parents would want us to pursue academic careers and be doctors and all of those, binary kind of, professions where there's really isn't a lot of color in them. But if your child has a completely divergent, because we've all heard that if you're in the arts, you're not likely to get a lot of encouragement in your family to pursue a career in that way. But if you look at the arts and the kind of income that people are making. I mean, look at designers. They make ridiculous money. If one gown can cost in the millions, there's money there, So become a fashion designer if you can, Yeah. So I think it also has to do, you speak about it later in your book, though, when you talk about a parent being a master in the gift that their child has and getting the knowledge and the wisdom that you need in order for you to be able to nurture your child. But first, without us getting ahead of ourselves, let's talk about when you and your child have divergent gifts or divergent sort of intentions with where you want to take your child's gift and where they want to take their gift.
Yeah, I think that's really challenging. And I get a lot of parents in my coaching business where they say, I have no idea how to nurture this gift. I have no experience. I have no, where do I start? Where do I go with this gift? And I think the earlier you discover what the gift is, and then the earlier you discover your learning needs. I think I mentioned it in the book where you have to identify your learning needs. Mm-hmm. So what do I need to know to get my child to the level that they need to get to?
Yes. So,
for example, for me, I had to understand the game of tennis. Because I didn't play. I did play tennis in primary school, as our things we used to do in the school curriculum. But that wasn't enough. I had to learn. I had to read. So I did a lot of research.
Study, actually. It's not just reading, it's studying. Yeah, you have to, because it's a lot.
I wanted to, exactly. I wanted to know what other parents did, so I can help my child as well. So I think the moment you know what you're working with, then you become the student.
Yes.
So now you teach yourself, you arm yourself. So if it's about going on the internet, if it's Googling stuff, if it's getting books. I remember one of the books I read was Rafa Nadal's book, where he talks about his uncle, his parents. It actually cited exactly what they were doing for him. And that was an eye-opener for me. I also read Black and White by Mr. Williams, Serena and Venus's dad. He really literally articulates what he did step by step. Sure. So that was an eye-opener for me. Okay, this is what I need to do. This is the mindset I need to have. The mindset for me was a big deal because I had to do a lot of unlearning. Or this is where we need to go. You get, okay, by this age, we need to be doing this. And so I think it's you becoming an active learner. Now you have to learn. You have to find out, what do I need to know? Maybe it's about hanging around the right type of people who are doing similar things. So now if people maybe 2 or 3 steps ahead of you, so you can get the insight into, what do I need to do? Where do we need to go? So maybe it's just getting the right circles, listening to coaches. I remember the first couple of sessions I still do.
Yes.
When my boys are having sessions, I pay attention to the coaches. I'm writing notes, because I'm still learning, and I think I mentioned somewhere in the book where I take my notes, I listen, and when I'm back at home, I can ask the boys questions just to check that they've been listening.
Yes.
And at the same time, I'm educating myself. So I think we have to be really active in identifying what your learning needs are.
Yeah, you're very immersed in this experience. You are in it, and like not every parent can be in it like that. But I think you can give some great advice to those parents who really have maybe constraints in terms of work and other things, like how they can contribute, in some way, shape or form into a high achiever child and helping them nurture that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think, I guess maybe the whole book is just talking about how active, I guess, you have to be yourself, because your child cannot do it alone.
Yes.
That's the biggest challenge. The child cannot. You will find in history, as I've researched, there are other people who've successfully become successful by themselves. But if you read a lot of success in sports especially, and in other industries as well, maybe music, because they require, talk about in the book, window of opportunity, where you have to start learning the earlier you do that. A lot of parental input is required.
Yes.
And then only at a certain age where you sort of, slow down or withdraw a bit, because now the child has developed ownership and they can sort of run with the gift on their own. But a lot of it is parental driven at the beginning, because they don't know. You have to drive, you have to take the child to the activities, you have to tell them to go to sleep, because now tomorrow you're training in the morning. You have to do the research, which is the best place for the best classes, best coaches, but you have to do all that work.
Yes.
And I think that's the challenge, where I didn't grow up doing that. I went to school and I came home. That's all I saw my mom doing. So when you say I'm very involved, I'm very researched, it's something I've learned I have to do, because obviously, as I talk about in the book, the gift dictates the pace of what you do with things. It's not my pace. It's not a parental pace. It's the gift itself in the child that dictates where you go, what you're doing, at what time you're doing the things.
Sure. You speak so well about exposure. I loved you recounting your trips to the Australian Open as a family as early as 3. I mean, one of your boys, I think, was 3 at the time when you were taking them to the Australian Open, and they were signing caps and taking pictures with, legends and people who are winning Grand Slams. So that exposure, it's life-changing. I mean, if I met a Grand Slammer, my life would be changed. But can you imagine, at 3 years old, you get that kind of exposure. What has it done for your boys that you can tangibly see in them? What sort of difference has it made?
It's amazing. Maybe because I compare it with my own lack of exposure. I don't know. But I think, without going too much into the book, I mentioned an example of my son Mudiwa when he went to the Australian Open, and we'd been there the whole day, and he was watching all the players. He watched Nadal, he watched Federer, he watched all the great players.
Until Monfils.
When he went to watch Gail Monfils, that was different. So when I talk about exposure, Gail Monfils, I guess for your listeners, is a African French player.
Yes.
So obviously my son resonated. We didn't even have to tell him that that's a black. You will know.
Yes.
But watching him was amazing. Yeah. And I think what transcended from him was that not anyone can play tennis, but I can play tennis too.
Yes. At this league, at this level.
At this level. Yeah. Because if that African man can do it, then I can do it. So I know the impact of representation. Yes. I actually saw it within my own son. It's amazing. And I think soon after that, even in his own level of appreciation and level of participation into his own game, we actually saw a trajectory and improvement. He was more engaged, more focused, more driven. And I think that was a significant moment for him. Yeah. When he realized, I can do this. And I think so when I talk to parents, sometimes there's a gap between all those people on TV versus me.
Yeah.
So so when I take my kids to Australian Open, it's not just players that we watch on TV anymore. They're actually tangible people that he sees. He sees them warming up. They see him sweating. Sometimes they shake the kids' hands. There's a conversation, So it makes it more real that this is an actual person, someone on TV. So then the gap between who I'm trying to be and where I am sort of closes in, and it makes what you're trying to do more achievable. And that's what exposure does. And I think it's if anyone can do that level of exposure, it's amazing. And I talk about it in the book that sometimes you can't do it at that level, because obviously the tennis Grand Slams are only in 4 countries. So find the level that you can get to. I have my niece who wants to be a singer. So I told my sister to take her to the
music
to the theaters. When J-Lo came to Australia one time, I said, take her, Alicia Keys came. I said, go, because when she actually sees the performer on stage, it becomes a different level of revelation for her. So whatever you can do for your child at your level that you can, then just do that, because it's an eye-opener for the kid and for yourself.
Sure. Yeah, no, I was definitely encouraged by your stories, because you actually brought it home. The point was very much brought home. We can watch it on TV and children can see, but there is still a difference through the modem or medium of a TV. But being there in the stadium, getting to be close enough, to the person that you so admire and seeing them really makes the world of difference. But now tell us about the tools and strategies, just at a principal level, of what parents, from the varying ranges of different environments that people find themselves in different contexts, what tools and strategies can they try and use to start the process, essentially, and identify the gifts and try and nurture their children as much as they can? Yeah,
if they can. I think the first thing is just pay attention. Pay attention. That there is no. The question I get asked is, at what age? And it can be as young as a 1-year-old. I've got my 3-year-old now. Yeah. And the thing that he stands out on, I think now that he's the 3rd child, we've become so aware of it now, but there are little things that they start doing, there are things that they gravitate to, there are things that they're inclined to naturally, there are things that they're driven into that without even you encouraging. You find that, I have a parent who talks about, my child just loves comic books. I said, well, why comic books? So look into that. Why the comic books? And she says, he reads them all night. That's a motivation. Yeah. So look into what's that. Why is he reading that all night?
What is it about it that he's willing to stay up in the middle of the night? Yeah.
Yeah. So find the motivation behind what your child is doing. So, and you don't need a name for it at the beginning, because I think what sidetracks people is this athleticism? Is it music? At the beginning, at the initial stage, I call it the exploration stage. You're exploring. You're putting your child into everything. So at the beginning, just indulge in as much as you can do for your child. Put them into music, put into sports, put into field, put into singing, everything, and then you will see what stands out. You will see what they're enjoying more. You will see what they're getting better results in. You will see where the excellence is. You will start to see patterns, but you have to start from the exploration stage. Yes. And then being able to be confident enough and to be courageous enough to now call it when you've actually seen what's standing out. Because I think a lot of parents are a bit scared to call it or to name it, or you'd rather let your kid do everything, at the expense of them specializing in one thing that they're actually excellent in. Yeah. So I think those are 2 tips I think I need to tell the parents. Don't be afraid to explore. Put your kids in a whole lot of things. And then when you find that thing, be bold enough, be courageous enough to now focus on that thing that your child that you see your child standing in. And at home, make that environment comfortable, celebrate it, make the child feel comfortable that this is my area of excellence. I was brought up to believe that's arrogance, but it's not, it's confidence.
It's not, it is.
If there's a close line between arrogance and confidence. If a child can walk out of the house and say, I'm an athlete, that's not arrogance, that's confidence. If a child can know that, I cannot sing to save my life, but I can draw.
Yeah. Yes.
that's the confidence you want to instill in your child, that there are a whole lot of things out there, but this is my thing.
Yes. Most important.
And that's the most important. This is my thing. And that's, you don't realize that, even there's a whole lot of things you're building within the child: self-confidence, and strong self-identity, because as long as they know who they are, nobody else can bully them around. Nobody else can sideline them, because they know they have their thing. No one can brainwash them. No one can do anything, take advantage of them, because they're comfortable within their own skin. They're not looking around to fit into places, because they know who they are.
Yes.
And I think that's the self-confidence you want to build in your child, the self-identity that they need to have, and resilience. It builds a lot of resilience, because still, as long as you're good at something, you still need to work on it.
Yeah.
A lot of people just think, it's a gift, so
it's going to develop itself. Yeah. Yeah.
They still need to do a lot of work. I talk about my boys, they still need to go to the gym. They still need to train. They still need to work on their manage their weaknesses. It's still a lot of work in their strengths area. So it puts a lot of resilience within the child themselves. So I think besides, you're building this amazing high achiever, there are a lot of life skills that you're building within the child. There's a lot of focus, a lot of discipline. My boys know there's a time when they're doing tournaments, they have to sleep early. They can't be sleeping all day. There's a diet they have to have. They can't have pizzas in the middle of the tournament, because that food does not help their muscles and concentration on court. So those are life skills. You need to be able to be disciplined. You need to be able to be focused. You need to be able to make decisions. A lot of decisions, I've taught them that they have to be responsible for that. The level where it's ownership now, but they have to make decisions for themselves.
Yes.
I talk about in the book where you have to be careful now to drive it to ownership. That you have to teach them to make decisions. So those are all life skills. Never mind that they're good in sports. So that you're building a whole person that can function in the world. We need to be making decisions, because we make decisions on mortgages, jobs, in the shops, everything. That's a whole life cycle of things. So the exciting thing about it is when you're building this high achiever, you're making them functionable in the world. They need all these skills to survive in the world anyway.
Yes.
So you're not doing anything extraordinary. You're just building a whole person who's really confident within themselves and with who they have and what they can do within themselves. So I think those are the two main principles I talk about. Explore, and then start somewhere, call it, and then focus on that, and the rest comes. I always talk about, people want to know the whole journey. I don't know where I'm going to be in the next year, the next 2 years. Again, I say the gift dictates what happens. And I think a lot of parents are afraid of living like that. You want to control, you want to be, and that's the biggest learning experience I've had. I've just had to let go and be okay with what we need to do. If we need to change the course, if we need to adjust things, is what comes with nurturing the gift. But you have to be open. I know sometimes we come with the mindset that, like I told you, like athletes are not intelligent, or my creative child is not intelligent because they're not performing well in school. You have to debunk all that. You have to be really open, and just because I think if you come with a closed mindset, you're going to miss the gift.
Yes,
you're going to miss the opportunity. Just be open-minded and just see, where is my child excelling in? Some kids are really good with their hands, landscapers. Chefs, bakers, they all pay attention to detail that not everybody else can. But if we limit ourselves and say, no, this is not intelligent, this is not excellent, this is not smart, then you're going to miss it.
Definitely.
So just be open. I think just be open is my biggest principle.
Yeah, and a lot of parents, I mentioned earlier about wanting to live vicariously through their children, because we still have that element where the element of authority and control doesn't just come with just wanting to parent and have, a functional adult at the end of it. But it's also the agenda of wanting to live your life through your children. And it can be a problem. You see, because then you can see it. Yeah, I see he's good at it, but he must be a doctor. I mean, I wanted to be a doctor when I was growing up. So he must be a doctor. So there is also that. And we need to also address that challenge that some parents have, to say that they can see that this child is brilliant in this thing, and it may not be as illustrious and amazing and recognized as much as the next thing maybe that they recognize and they value as something prestigious, a prestigious career in law or in medicine, but you can really have, I mean, these days we pride ourselves in wearing international brands and whatever. But people are behind that. A whole design team is behind that. You know, the food industry. Now people are chefs and they're, you know, in yachts making food for the Jay-Z's of this world. So, you know, there's so much that we can try and move away from, you know, the things that we know and the things that we grew up on, because that's the important message from your book. You use your children who are in the sporting field, but it can really be applied to every single career, because you can really make a success of yourself as a pastry chef. You know, you can make a lot of money, a lot of money as a pastry chef. You know, if you can hear the multi-million-dollar pastry chef speak, then you'd be surprised. Like, I could literally make a lot of money out of the thing.
Absolutely.
But because we don't know and we don't acknowledge those things as careers that are feasible, you know, and long term, and you can really be an expert in such a thing as pastry, then you really won't encourage your child and nudge them in that direction. So as parents, we really need to be convicted in the manner in which we have raised our children so far, disregarding whatever age that they're at. You know, if they are in their teens and you can feel the guilt that, oh my gosh, I recognized this thing when they were 5. It's not too late. There is still time for you to say, let's turn this wheel around and, you know, try and get it on the right course. Because literally when you are in an area or in an element that just speaks to everything in you, you know, like your natural element, you really can soar. I mean, it's important that we do that for our children. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent now.
You said it so beautifully.
I'm going off on a tangent.
It is so beautifully.
I must minister to myself first before I become a preacher. Well, the next thing is commit to stay committed, which could be a tall order, you know, for some parents, because like we said, people have different working life contexts, you know, different family responsibilities. So how does one stay committed on the path with the failures that come with it, with the disappointments that come with it? How does one stay committed on the path of really nurturing the gift in a child?
Yeah, that's a really heavy chapter, because it is it is. I think if I talk about in terms of nurturing and developing, that's one of the challenges.
Yes. Staying
committed, because somewhere along the journey, you're going to hit some dips, you know, you're going to get frustrated.
Yep.
Your child is going to get frustrated because, for example, put it to the sport world again, you know, they're going to have a lot of losses. Yeah. In tennis, we have a lot of matches that they were expected to win, you know, and they don't win, or they can go over like a 6-match winning loss, you know, So there are things like that. And you're thinking, that doubt always comes up. Are they really good at this?
Yeah.
You know,
did I make a mistake as a parent? Should they be in class right now and not at a tournament?
And I'll tell you, that will always creep up.
Yeah.
Should we be here?
Yeah.
Did we call it too early? Is it? So I think having the bigger picture and being respectful of the process, I think is what I've learned, that, you know, it's a process. I always talk, like one of the parents I was coaching the other time, she said, well, what about your boys now? They should be professionals. I said, no, not yet. It's like school. Your child goes to school from 5, 6 years old, whatever, to 18. And then they only go to pursue their profession after 18.
Yes.
So similar with any gift you're nurturing. So for me, it's the athletes, for a musician, for some professions might start earlier, but there's a period where they're just mastering the gift before remuneration comes, before money comes, before the accolades come, before anything else comes. There's a whole period where you're just learning and developing and developing and developing. And it's only after a certain stage where then everything else comes up. And I think a lot of the times the parents get frustrated with the process. How come we're not getting this yet? Or how come we're not achieving this yet? My boy should not be earning money at 15, because there's no kid who's earning money at 15. They're still in the master stage. There's a process to the things. And so you have to be committed to the commitment you've made. We've called, this is what we're doing now, so we need to run the show. And with every gift, with every, even call it from music to chefs to artists to, there's a stage, there's a period of incubation, there's a period of beginning, there's a period of intermediate, there's a period of mastery.
Yeah.
So there's a stage.
Yeah.
So in all those stages, you need to keep the bigger picture. Where are we aiming to? Obviously, you've set goals, you've set, targets for yourselves. I know I put it in the last chapter because when I talk about the vision,
yeah,
where you need to have your goals in place, you need to have the bigger picture so that when everything else is getting lost and getting frustrated, you remember this is what we're working towards. And when I talk about stay committed to the commitment you've made, it's being respectful of the process, being respectful of the other challenges that may come your way. And it's not reflective of you made a wrong decision or your child is not good. It's just the process. It's just what it is. And I remember I was watching TD Jakes one time on the stage. He took a little boy who was learning the piano. He was going ding, ding, ding like a little beginner. And he put him next to an adult who can do all the fancy things. And his message was like, this is just the same thing at different stages.
Yes, exactly.
And we need to respect that. And that's where I talk about commitment, staying in the commitment, because you're just at a different stage.
Your story is amazing. I really wish you everything of the very best with your boys. I am going to buy the ticket to that Wimbledon or Australian Open or whichever Grand Slam that they will clinch and lift that trophy. I wish you everything of the very best for you and your boys and your entire family. Thank you so much for writing the book. I trust that a lot of people get a lot out of it. You can share with them, with the audience, how they can get a hold of your book.
Oh, yeah. So my book, it's available on Amazon, if you want to purchase it on Amazon. But I would prefer you to get it from my website because you can get extra deals. I offer, if you purchase from my website, email me your receipt. You can get extra deals like coaching, consultation sessions or other masterclasses I'll be having as the year goes, as the rest of the year goes. Most of the stuff has been virtual because of the COVID and stuff.
Yeah.
So if you can reach me on my website, www.intentionallivingcoaching.com. You can purchase the book there. So that's where most of my books are available. And you can reach me on all the social media platforms. I'm on Intentional Living Coaching on Facebook and on Instagram, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn as well as Mabel Munyimani, my name, on my LinkedIn profile. And so I'm available if you want to have a chat about the book, my coaching services, because I offer coaching services for parents, obviously, because it's a journey. It's a whole mindset change. Things don't just happen. Things I've put in the book have been years that I've had to learn. I've had to journey through. I have to unlearn, and I've had to keep myself from. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning. So if you want to get in touch with me, I'm available on all those websites, on all those social media platforms. And for the ones available in the other people who are in Johannesburg and Pretoria, I'm having my launch next week, 8th September. So you can purchase your tickets on Eventbrite. And I'm having another workshop that I'm putting on the website on the Eventbrite in the next couple of days as well. So you can physically come to our book launch, where we have some fine activities. I've got some great speakers as well that are coming to there. And we share a lot more about the book itself. And you get to meet me. We're going to have a Q&A session. You can ask me a whole lot of questions about your journey, what to do, questions about the book. I'll be happy to take if you're available in the area as well.
Awesome. Be sure to please check her out on social media. Get those tickets to the launch. I'm definitely also going to be there because I have more questions that need to be answered. But yeah, just to also meet up with Mabel and just get a different experience, hopefully with some of the audience that have similar, if not, more interesting stories about their own children and the gifts that they've discovered in them. But that's it from my side. Thank you so much, Mabel. It was wonderful having you. I look forward to the next book because you say you are writing now. Hang on. the high performance mama. So Mama is going to be back here telling us about the fruits of the very many years that you have invested in your kids. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed this chat. It's like you have read so much and you've got your own journey of your children. It was beautiful. It was a very insightful conversation. I've learned so much already from you. So thank you again for this amazing opportunity.
Awesome. Well, next up, I am going to be closing out. Please stay tuned.
Praise us on back-to-back praise and worship. Zoe Live Radio.
Welcome back. That was such a insightful and challenging conversation with Mabel and how she is raising her boys, what the things that she's teaching them, the things that she has seen in them, and that she is working tirelessly and so committed to making sure that they realize their fullest potential. I trust that we are all encouraged. I trust that we are very much challenged to take an example from her. I trust that we will buy her book and we will support what she is doing first, but also learn so much from what she has done and how much further she yet still has to go while we all start on our different journeys of nurturing the gifts that we see and we discover in our children. But thank you so much for joining me this evening. It has been an absolute pleasure. Until next week, I trust you will have a fruitful week and may God bless you.